domains and stuff, but I definitely watched most of that 2-hour video.
Oh,
Wow.
did you? Wow. Okay.
Really detailed. I'm really into the legal stuff. So, all right, I think we are live. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, Jessica, there we go. So welcome everybody. I had a little bit of I had to troubleshoot my microphone, so we're a little bit late, but we're on time. My name is Christina Tobin. We're here with United We Stand Sessions and with Free and Equal TV, and I have the honor of introducing Miss Lyn Ulbricht. Please welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's my honor. I'm great to talk to you finally. I mean, you can talk to you at the same time.
I know, virtually meet you, and I was just mentioning right before the live stream that I'm just, you sent me a 2-hour video, and we'll go into detail about that. But Lyn, let people know who you are for our viewers and supporters, and who you are.
Sure. Well, my identity in the last 6.5 years, almost 7, is as Ross Ulbricht's mother, who and advocate, who was given a double life plus 40-year sentence without the possibility of parole for all nonviolent charges for his role in a free market website that he created when he was 26, and he is now 36. So I've been fighting for Ross because there's so many things, and if you watch that video, you're well aware of a lot of it, more than probably most people now, and what a travesty the trial was, the investigation, how many constitutional violations occurred, and really, at this point, Ross and I both feel we hope that his case will shine a light because this is not unique to him. The criminal justice system has become weaponized against people, and it needs to be changed.
It's criminal justice reform is the word I'm hearing amongst some of our individuals, particularly out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, one of the stops of our United We Stand tour this fall, and seeing a lot of leaders, organizers. In fact, Jessica, Rowan, many others out there are involved in the I don't know if it's protest or the beginning of our nation uniting in criminal justice reform. The timing of having you here today, and I watched this morning, you have a video, we'll have to link to it, a couple hours about really the details of whether it's interrogation against Roth, and learning about Judge Catherine Forrest and how Chuck Schumer recommended her to that seat. Those sort of things right there. Flawed judicial system, the need for criminal justice reform. Can you tell me more about what happened in that case with Ross Ulbricht and Judge Catherine Forrest, what she did? It seemed to lack a lot of accountability. It really did.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do feel that this sentence and the whole targeting of Ross is politically motivated, and I don't think it's about drugs, even though the site is known to be a drug site, quote unquote. So Chuck Schumer, and it came out in Deep Web, the documentary, and in this material that you saw video. There's also written material, all footnoted, and based on the public record, as well as a podcast, so people can access it in all kinds of ways. And he instigated this investigation and called for the takedown not only of the website but of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was a very new thing when Silk Road was launched. Ross was motivated and inspired by its potential for monetary freedom around the world. But I think that's also very threatening to people who control monetary exchanges and interaction. And I don't think it was well received by very powerful people. And I know that they went after it very hard because it came out later, Edward Snowden revealed it, that the NSA was targeting and urgently pursuing Bitcoin users right before the takedown of Silk Road. And they're supposed to be going after terrorists, but apparently they thought that protecting us from Bitcoin users was very important. But in fact, terrorists have gotten a lighter sentence than Ross got. So I think personally, and also when you see the other defendants' sentences, it's, to me, quite obvious that it was, they wanted a trophy, and Ross was their trophy, and it was not about drugs, because the guy that was convicted of being the biggest drug seller on the site, Jan Slom, got 10 years. He has the same offense level in the system as Ross. That's a huge disparity. Double life plus 40 and 10 years. Ross is almost done 10 years. Also, other people involved, 2 corrupt agents that weren't allowed to be known to the jury, that the judge blocked and the prosecutors hid, that had full reign of the site, that had the ability to change things and change the evidence that the jury saw. Now they are in prison for stealing, and they use their access to steal a fortune from the site, vendors on the site. So, but I don't think it was about drugs. I mean, you go down, the guy who was running a copycat site that was launched after Silk Road was taken down, called Silk Road 2, which the government itself said is bigger, sold more drugs. He never went to prison at all. He's free, and they don't seem to be worried about it. But yet Ross has to die in a cage, and he didn't know where this thing was going. He was a 26-year-old idealist who was involved in the Ron Paul campaign and got very caught up in Austrian economics and was on fire for freedom. He was, I've got to bring free market ideas to the world kind of thing. And that was his motivation, not to be a drug kingpin like the government has charged him and convicted him with, as if he's El Chapo, as if he's Pablo Escobar, as if any website host is. But I think, so anyway, we were going back to the motivation. Ross was arrested and lived in California, and yet he was brought to New York and the Southern District of New York in Chuck Schumer's state to be tried. The lead prosecutor was Preet Bharara, who was later fired by Trump, but is Chuck Schumer's very close colleague for years and his special counsel. And the judge was, yes, recommended to Obama for her position by Schumer and then appointed by Obama. And so it's very, very cozy little situation. And the prosecution constructed a very carefully crafted narrative to the jury that was permitted by the judge, who also coached them. I mean, there's all kinds of detail that you've probably seen a lot of. She wouldn't allow a government witness to talk about an alternate perpetrator. They blocked that because it's quite apparent that more than one person was running the site. And so he was brought back from California to New York and tried in the Southern District of New York. And why? It doesn't, except it was political, I think. So, I mean, it's obvious to me that it was. So this isn't right. And by the way, the judge did not permit Ross's libertarian ideals and philosophy to be known to the jury. And in fact, its sentencing said, we know it's notable that you started the site for philosophical reasons, which actually shows that she knows he didn't do it as a drug kingpin, that he's an idealist, that he's a, young idealist. And we know you did it for philosophical reasons, but we're not sure that's a philosophy you've left behind. Saying basically, well, since we don't know if you've dropped this dangerous philosophy of libertarian free markets and voluntary interaction, we're going to have you die in a cage. That's what she said, essentially. And and there's a lot of things about the site, which we can go into if you want. But just to back up my point that it was intended for idealistic reasons. It was based on the non-aggression principle and voluntary interaction, which meant that nothing was allowed on the site to be exchanged if it hurt a third party. So, for example, despite what many very sloppy and lazy journalists say, There was nothing that exploited children on that site. There was nothing related to pedophilia or child pornography, because of course a child is a third party that's harmed. There was no stolen property, because that person would be the person who was stolen from would be harmed. Anything that was, violence, weapons, all of these things were not permitted on the site. And that has been well documented. And also one of the top admins told me that he would spend hours every day expunging these things from the site. So the intentions were idealistic. What ended up happening was way, got out of hand, whatever. But this Ross is not dangerous. He has no violence in his personal history or in his convictions at all. And he's a much more mature guy. He's 36 now. 36, having spent all these years in prison, in a maximum security prison for most of it. And, he just doesn't need to be spending, they don't need to be spending taxpayer money, which will be about a couple $1 million at least to keep him in prison for the rest of his life.
Having watched quite a few videos of Roth and yourself, and in greater detail this morning, the trial and what happened, and definitely I think having a lot of experience being in courtrooms on the ballot access side, and being around a lot of lawyers and understanding that process pretty well, there were a lot of flaws in that case against really the judicial system against Ross. Is very clear to me. And my feeling is in researching Ross is that he does have purely a heart of gold, and he is a freedom fighter or freedom riser for that matter these days. And it is truly, as I learn more, upsetting to see, Ross is his own entity. We have the Snowden, the Assange, and different individuals that personally I feel should not be in the positions that they are today. But Ross has a heart of gold, and in any way that I, Free and Equal Elections, our team, our United We Stand tour can generate mass awareness internationally, whatnot, to push for our current president, Trump, to grant clemency for Ross. That would be ideal. If not him, the next president, for sure, whether that's an independent or not, to the moment they're elected, grant clemency, release these freedom risers for that matter. So I am there with you. I took down a note as what you said, Silk Road, it was a website that, when was it created? I know the trial was 2011. When
the
was
trial actually, he was arrested in 2013, and the trial was the following January in 2014, and it started in 2011.
It was created in 11, my error. Okay, and then 13, 14. And so Silk Road being an open platform, items exchange, including jewelry, food, stuff like that. I mean, when you look at Craigslist, it seems like the difference with Silk Road was the currency exchange, Bitcoin.
That's what I think. I think it's the Bitcoin. Yeah.
When you take the Federal Reserve, the creation, having interviewed last week and G. Edward Griffin of The Creature from Jekyll Island, and you have this alternative platform that, how much in billions of dollars was it, Lynn?
No, I mean, that is commonly spread around, but the government's estimate was 183 million. Billions, 1,000 million. It's a lot different. So it wasn't as enormous as it's been exaggerated in the media, but yeah, it's still a lot, 180, but that includes legal items, that includes everything. So.
And it just seems very clear to me that the system did not want to see an alternative currency like Bitcoin thrive, and it was on the cusp of thriving. Ross was the pawn or the excuse or the scare tactic of, hey, look, you create something with alternative currency that's beyond the Federal Reserve note, you're going to go to life prison, and that's not okay, to put it lightly. So prior to the case, there was no internet services that is provider that had been criminally charged for permitting content or even hosting websites that tolerate or even promote illegal activity, right?
Right, but that was civil. That's in the civil courts. he's the first one in the criminal justice system to be held responsible. And, it's interesting comparing to other sites because, I've been told Craigslist, there's many illegal items, including drugs, all over Craigslist. Facebook, it was recently testified before Congress. I don't remember her name, but she testified that once Facebook started tracking drug sales on their site in the last 6 months, that it sold, I believe there was like 100 times as many drugs sold on Facebook in the last 6 months than Silk Road its entire existence. But Jeff Zuckerberg is not being held responsible. I don't think he should go to jail or court or anything like that. It's to hold a website host responsible for what's on their site is just, it's a First Amendment issue for one thing, but it puts a chill on the internet. And that's what they were doing. Ross was never convicted or charged with selling drugs himself or selling any illegal item himself. He was charged with having a platform. And I think it's that platform and the idea behind it, the free market, the alternative currency and all of that, that really got the attention of some very powerful people. And I think, yeah, he was made the example. They even said, we're going to make an example of you. Now, I don't think that's what our Justice Department is supposed to do. I think each individual is supposed to be tried, for their own crimes or whatever. They were using him and they admitted it.
And so the Federal Reserve note created by these private banksters in 1913, and you have this flawed judicial system of judges like Judy Catherine Forrest, her ties to Schumer, Obama, that are appointed by essentially the one-party system. And then you have this really flawed prison system. That's a whole other issue. Beyond justice reform, we need electoral reform, all criminal justice reform, electoral reform. It's time to replace all of these people in office that lack integrity and are tied to the big money powers that be. So before we shift into solutions like petitions, what events you've been traveling and speaking at, what you're going to be doing in the future to help ensure that Ross gets pardoned one day, granted clemency one way or another. It just has to happen. Yeah. The latter's not an option. You shared a story with me on the phone when we first spoke. It was just like this call. It was the first time, and I kind of did believe how many people we knew, but then it was like, wow, we know a lot of people in this network. But it actually brings a little bit of a tear to my eye thinking about it. The story of Ross recently in prison of the day he went into meditation. Could you share that story? I just so people can get his personality.
I think maybe you're talking about that he he's been under a semi-lockdown since
it was with the bean or the eating the pea.
Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, he just to preface, he's a very inspiring person because he makes the best of a situation, and he's in a terrible situation. Just to set the stage, he's been in a lockdown of 22 hours a day in a cell, an 8x10 cell, since March because of COVID. And now, because of the riots, they're locking down all prisons in the United States 24/7. So now the cell, he doesn't even get the 2-hour break to make a call or to take a shower or anything. He's in that cell 24 hours. And that's been going on for a few days since the riots. And what Ross chose to do with his time was, or at least some of his time, and he reads and he does other constructive things. He writes, and you can read his writings on medium.com and on our website. They're very interesting, really, some of them very inspiring. Pardon me?
Your website is?
Yeah, it has a page called Meet Ross, and it has his writings, and also medium.com. He's published there. And on all kinds of things, on Bitcoin, but also on how he stayed strong in prison and the 5 things. He has one essay I love, which is the 5 keys to inner strength I learned in 5 years in prison. It's very inspiring. It keeps me inspired. In any case, he decided to do a meditation retreat during this lockdown where he would just meditate. And I believe he went 4 days or so, and fasting. And at the end, I said, well, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm great. I had an amazing food experience. And I'm like, oh, really? They're giving you really good food or what? I mean, that's weird. And he goes, it was with, what was it? It was with, it was a peanut. It was with one peanut. And he said, after fasting and meditating, this experience of this peanut was just so amazing. And he went into this whole thing about this peanut. And I'm like, but that, I mean, and that kind of, he's just intentionally positive and intentionally high-minded. And even when he, in his essay, The 5 Keys to Inner Strength, he writes about how important forgiveness has been for him. He's had to forgive the prosecutors, the judge, all these people, or he would be eaten alive by bitterness, as many are in the prisons, and understandably so. And even when I sometimes will go off on what I think of the judge, he's like, no, we're not going to go there. It's not what we want to do. That is just going to take, that's not what we want to do. She's part of the machine, but why waste your energy hating her? She's just, it doesn't serve us. It doesn't keep us strong for the fight. And, he's just a very inspiring person. He certainly is no danger to anyone. And in fact, he could be an incredible leader, I think, or at least, inspiration to people on many fronts. And he needs to be out. People, in my opinion, especially after this whole ordeal, and I've met too many nonviolent people who are serving horrible sentences, including a marijuana offender that Ross was friends with in his last prison. He has a life sentence. He's serving life for marijuana in Colorado, where it's legal in the state level. It's just, this is evil. This is terrible. It's destroying people's lives. And so, God, I forgot what I was going to say. But basically, we want to shine a light on this. That Ross's case is not unique. That this is going on, and it needs to be corrected, because we're all in peril because of it.
I agree with you on granting Ross clemency, but the day that we have, if not the current president, the previous one, whoever he or she, age, race, the heart, the mind, who that person is, or aligned for our country, will release individuals like that, like Ross's friend, that should not be in prison. And regarding shining a light, I agree with you about the judge. For individuals that are protesting, uniting, I find that most of the people are very peaceful, whereas it's happening throughout the U.S. and there's that small faction. And it's kind of a playbook thing that we know. The big money powers going right from a coronavirus to a protest. That was something that does not come as a surprise. But when we shine a light on the system, likely through a blockchain ledger, that's another topic, we'll be able to see what's real and what isn't real. And the cockroaches scatter. The judges, the ones we mentioned, they'll just scatter. And let's not put that anger, negative energy towards those individuals. Let's just peacefully replace them with beautiful.
Yeah, it depletes us to have that. Yeah.
Let's focus on the solution. And we're going through this protest, which I say this too shall pass. A great awakening arising is coming, a solution-based, like, we're going to fix this, and we're going to have music and beautiful speakers, and that love will win. And so, speaking of the love you have for your son, let's say if the president was listening to this, the people was listening to this, Ross is unable to speak for himself right now in the stream, so his mother, you are the next of kin to do that. What's Ross's feel of why he should be pardoned, granted clemency by President Trump? As I'll send this video to some of the people that know him well and so on, what would he like to personally say?
Well, and he has said it. He was young and he made a mistake. He made a mistake that he regrets. He would never, ever do it again. He has much bigger ideas that are legal that, he wants to pursue and use to contribute to humanity, to our society. He's very smart. He's very creative. He's really a visionary and a pioneer. I mean, if it weren't for his vision, Bitcoin would probably be an unknown plaything of geeks, frankly. He put Bitcoin on the map. He saw the potential. Now, of course, it's all over the place. He is peaceful. Guards come up to me, and of course fellow prisoners, several have written a letter, signed a letter, over 100, I think it's 130 of them, saying Roth shouldn't be in here. I've had guards come up and say, he shouldn't be in here. You need to get him out of here. He doesn't belong in here. He's a gentle, peaceful, compassionate person, and that's been proven by his life. And yes, when he was 26 and very passionate about freedom, he made a mistake. And he regrets that mistake. And besides which, this sentence, it violates the Eighth Amendment of cruel and unusual punishment. It's extremely unusual to give a young, first-time nonviolent offender this kind of over-the-top, excessive, draconian, really, sentence. And it needs to be corrected, not only for Ross as an individual, but for the precedent that it sets for others. And the excessive sentencing that's going on in this country that is relatively new in our history. And this needs to be dialed back. And one of the main, he's like the poster boy for draconian sentencing. And by correcting this, by commuting this sentence to time served and allowing him his freedom again, to prove himself, to redeem himself, giving him a second chance, would not only help him, of course, but it would change the precedent that has been set that is very wrong and un-American. So I think it should be done. And there's almost 300,000 people who have put their name on an online petition that say it should be done. It's, yeah, that's it.
And, I just want to put a call out there just directly to President Trump. Do the right thing. You want real criminal justice reform. Pardon Ross, free Ross, right thing to do. And in any way that free and equal elections and our team can help make that a reality, we're there for you, Lyn and Ross, and so on. And Trump, there's a petition, 300,000 people, so where can we find that petition? Could you tell us more about it?
Sure. Yeah, our hub basically is freeross.org, and that's where that information you saw this morning is. Lots of information on there. It's heavily footnoted and backed up by solid facts, not some of the stuff you read in the media. And there's a big red banner. Click it. You go right to the online petition. Or so freeross.org will take you to everything. It takes just a minute. And you don't really need to know all the details of Ross's case to sign it, because all it's asking for is to correct this sentence, which is, if you think it's wrong to give a young, first-time, nonviolent offender double life plus 40 years without any hope of parole, it's literally a death in prison sentence, then sign it, because that's all we're asking. We're not asking for a pardon. We're not asking to say, oh, it was all fine. We're asking to correct this terrible sentence that it puts us all in peril.
So definitely support that petition today, everybody. I know I've signed it, and our foundation has submitted a clemency letter for you to send to President Trump and his team and so on. Oh, Lyn, what's going on in the country right now? I mean, what are your feelings with just diving right in coronavirus to the protests and what's happening?
I have not been afraid of getting the virus from the beginning, because I just feel like there's so much information out there. I don't know what to believe. And I don't know how political I should really get, but I personally am not, I don't have to wear a mask, so I'm not, and I'm not concerned. I think a lot of it is overblown and people are being manipulated. What really concerns me is how willingly and easily people just are giving up their rights. I mean, the first thing that struck me was, well, wait a second, we have a constitutional right to assemble, and they're saying we can't assemble. They're saying, I mean, some of these, governors
Congress moved
are,
fast on that, huh?
huh?
Congress moved really fast on removing our right to assemble. That was like
Yeah. I mean, hey,
our
we do have a
Christmas
constitution
present.
here.
Yeah,
And so I've been looking at it like a flu, that I don't want to get. And I'm, if I were on the New York subway, I probably would, I wouldn't go on the New York subway if I could help it. I've gotten sick there before with a flu. But I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm not worried about it. As far as riots, well, all of a sudden we're not talking about COVID anymore. That's kind of interesting. Suddenly it's riots. I'm like, wow, that was quick. Okay, can we stop doing the COVID thing now then? I mean, I don't know. It's of course I don't trust the media after my whole experience with Ross. There's so many lies, and so I'm pretty skeptical about a lot of it.
yeah, Cindy Sheehan interviewed her 6 weeks ago.
Oh,
Anti-war
really?
activist. Yeah, she'll be on at least one of the stops of the United We Stand tour. She called it a shamdemic, and Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and similar mindset. The tie between 9/11 and our rights, the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act coming about. I mean, and now here we are, full circle into a coronavirus. It's just more rights being taken away, and you look at the House bill 66666. That's some disturbing numbers. 4 sixes in a row. I mean, I don't get too much into that, but that one's kind of really in your face. But you just see this control. It's like our government. G. Edward Griffin last week, he went into government control. That's been since. But this is now the lockdown. Government lockdown is what G. Edward Griffin said. And
yeah, when it first came out, I'm like, okay, here's 9/11 all over again, a new layer of restrictions and controls over our freedom. I just knew it right away. And I thought, well, as long as I don't have to, I'm not going to cooperate with that. I'm fine. That's it.
I saw Dr. Ron Paul early on, before the coronavirus statistics started coming out. Clickbait, had on one of his articles, the coronavirus is a hoax. But as you read into it, he recognized that it exists, but really was blown out of proportion, enabled the government for it to be a power grab. And I felt he was right. He is a man of integrity. He speaks his truth. Nobody owns him. Same with the percentage and Jesse Ventura and Thomas Massey. I can say that. That's one congressman that is, it's like, oh my God, how did you become a congressman? You're one of us. Like, it's really a little
he's a great guy. I've met him a few times. He's
he's totally invited to speak on the United We Stand tour. It's the only congressman we've invited. And we'll definitely, put a few candidates running for office, sprinkle them in there too. That's what it's about, getting involved and taking our country back. But yeah, it's been really insightful. It's been a common, just all the speakers I've had on have felt the same way. And it's been eye-opening for me to learn so much from all of you. So how do we fix it, Lyn? Right now, people have anger. Unfortunately, there's some violence going back and forth. We know violence is not the answer. Love is greater than fear, I often say. And what do we do to fix this, Lyn? What do we do to shift this?
I have my own cause, of course, and I hope it will help in a bigger way. And I think we all have to wake up. I mean, I think we're at a tipping point in history where we're either going to go towards mass surveillance and government control and potentially total government suppression. And it's happened before. It's not the first time. Or we're going to go towards freedom and innovation and better lives for people. I mean, those are really the two choices we have. And it's up to us. I mean, it's up to people to wake up. And I feel it's kind of disconcerting how few people, well, I think a lot are, but I also think a lot aren't. So, and I think people really want to be safe, and I want to be safe, but I don't know, sometimes, you have to fight for your freedom or you're going to lose it. And you won't necessarily be safe either. So I just feel like we're at a tipping point in history, and we all have to do our best to make it tip the right way. And so our children or grandchildren or those coming after us don't live in a oppressive surveillance state, which I've seen, one of the things about Silk Road was the privacy. It was all about the privacy because of this encroachment. And the encroachment was so much less than it is now. And it's just been growing at an alarming rate. And now it's almost like we take it for granted. Oh yeah, they're tracking me. Oh yeah, they're hearing what I'm saying. Whatever, you know. And it's where before it was outrageous. It's happening very quickly, and all I know is to say we've got to resist when we can, peacefully, and speak out. That's the other thing, speak out. And I have people say to me, oh, you're so brave. And I'm like, it shouldn't take courage to speak out against what's going on, because we're supposed to be free. We're supposed to have, the ability to safely express our philosophy and our beliefs. And in little ways, trying to turn hearts and minds. Like people, it's often when I leave a place, they go, oh, stay safe. This is the new thing, stay safe. And I just go, stay free, and then walk away, and maybe they'll think about it. I don't know, little ways like that, listen, this is not, our safety and our health are important. And yeah, people die and the flu happens and all these things happen. We don't do this kind of draconian lockdown situation. There's something else behind it, I think.
Yeah, I think the fact that we can even think that our government's capable of such a thing is a problem. Just coming from a, uniting people perspective with the work that we do, or I do, and the team. But I really want to put a call out to the people who are listening to this interview now and in the future, maybe more. And let them know that if you're feeling, like hopeless and that this can't be fixed, it's just like, don't, because the moment you do that, you are a part of the problem.
Right. You have to at least go down fighting. At least go down resisting. Don't let them just give it to them. That's how I look at
it. And that's what I wanted to say, is that for the people listening, look at Lyn right here. Look at what she has gone through with her boy, her baby boy, and her son, and where he's at and where you're at. You are still here a decade later. You see the vision. When you say there's two options, I already know it's like the first option is not a possibility. Like the latter, like, uniting and fixing our country is, at least for me, is the only option. And I want to put it out there. It's like, if Lyn can do this and be in this mindset after all that she's gone through, all of you can as well. There's just no excuse for giving up. There's just none. And even if it's planting a garden, going to a local community meeting, delivering a bag to an elder, helping your community, whatever you can do, it's enough what it is that works for you. And so when that happens, that's how we bring about cultural change and cultural shift, is when we all get in the mindset that we can give back, whether it's 5% of the day, 1% of the week, depending our circumstances, and we're in that mindset of paying it forward. I love that book and that by Catherine Ryan Hyde. She lives here in Cambria, in the town where I'm at, and pay it forward mentality, mindset. So that was just a thought. And I thank you, Lyn, really for being such an inspiration for so many and so many more in the future. I see it.
Listen to the mama. That's what I tell you. Listen to the mama.
I'll be in Tucson next February. I'll meet you probably in person before then.
I hope so.
Have people gone to, I think I remember reading and hearing in the network, to go see Roth in person? What's the
well, it's not easy. It's
But
well, even ever, it's really, you have to, for some reason, and I do not understand this law or rule, you have to have known him before his arrest. So he has friends who knew him before his arrest that come, and loved ones and everything, of course, but new people, I don't know, or maybe get special permission, that sort of thing. So it's not an easy matter to visit a federal prisoner. And so just visiting, writing, you can write him, and hopefully he'll be out and you can meet everybody then. I mean, I really am hopeful. I think there's, people that see the injustice. I believe our president has shown a heart for issuing clemency to people. He has mercy, he's shown mercy to people. And I really believe that if he could be made to understand what's happened in Ross's case and who's been involved and how it was such a travesty and what the precedent is that is set, that I think he can see the case for, granting some relief and a second chance to Ross, who, is a good, like you say, he's got a heart of gold and he wants to help people, and he would be nothing but an asset in our society.
You can't wait to meet you in person one day.
Oh, yeah.
It has to happen. You manifest it, quantum physics. Next week we have on United We Stand Sessions Colin Cantrell of Nexus.
I know Colin very well.
Right. You were actually a speaker at Nexus at Aspen Institute a couple years ago, but I didn't meet you, or like.
I know, we kind of passed it. It was,
But that's when I really knew of you, and Chuck Williams as well. He previously worked with Dash.
Chuck very well too. They're great people. I mean, that's been the silver lining of this whole thing, is the wonderful people that I've become friends with and know, you included. And the bittersweet part is that I want Ross to meet everyone. I want them to meet him, and it was such a wonderful celebration when that happens.
It will. And we're going to be discussing their projects, of course, and also they're building the front end, back end coding development of our blockchain election assistant app, which will launch.
I know, you told me about it. I actually spent Easter with him, and he's quite the brainiac. I'm just kind of like, I think I'm following this. Okay. But it's good. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, it's a whole
new world of coding. Wonderful too. Jim, who's a great supporter, Jim Cantrell. I don't know if you know Jim, but he's another brainiac, wonderful freedom fighter, fabulous person. They're great people.
Yeah. I had dinner with him and his wife, Angela, in Tucson a year or two ago now, and Jim's been a supporter of free and equal elections in every way, and definitely can see how Colin is a son. There's a lot of brain there, and hearts of gold, but man, again, fierce, and they get it done and do it the right way. And this morning, Lyn, I got a link this morning from Jordan Page, and
Jordan's another wonderful, great person.
And the new song, and so he's going to be performing this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, his new music and speaking.
He's such a good songwriter,
Yeah, he performed at our after party in 2012 after our presidential debate. Larry King and myself, and so that's where I got to really know Jordan, and I'm like, I'm envisioning you performing right before our debate this fall. The song Pendulum is really where it swings from the left to the right, but I'm stuck somewhere in the middle. And I bring this up because we are really mostly independent voters, right? Gallup polls state that there's more independent voters than D's and R's, and I do foresee civil rights leaders and mentors have messaged to me an independent candidates movement on the horizon, and we will win. Love will win. And when you look at the American Revolution, we can go right into American evolution, drop the R, and have that evolution of transparency within our elections through the blockchain ledger. Better things arise in the future, and transparency and technology as well. That's going to be the next hurdle of space, keeping peace in space as well as here on Earth. So But the
And one
ledger.
quick point, because, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to say one quick point about you were saying left, right, and all of that. Criminal justice reform, in Ross's case too, is crosses all political spectrum. So we have a widespread support page that has people from the far left, like Noam Chomsky, and then libertarians and conservatives, all kinds of people on there, because it crosses those lines. And we had 21 organizations from both sides of the political spectrum who supported Ross's Supreme Court petition and wrote amicus briefs about why it was important. So just to support your point, this is not about left, right. It's a whole new thing, and it crosses those lines. And it's just, it's human, rights and justice and freedom, which is what our country was founded on.
I agree with you, Lynn. It's like it's just the whole concept of free and equal is seeing beyond party lines, beyond gender, beyond race, beyond age. It's about the heart and doing things right and being good and so on. And so, but yeah, I definitely see political parties, they don't work, but the ideas do. I love the ideas from, some parties more than others. But my take is just give them a platform so they can all be heard. I mean, we've had independent Democrats and Republicans in our debates, and maybe they're using a party line to get elected. I think our current president did. I mean, he did inquiry. Myself, interested in running as an independent for president. And that stuff right there back in 2011, I think I saw that interest, like, wow, Trump really is considering running as an independent. But obviously the ballot access hurdles make that difficult and very costly and so on. But in any case, I do see that we will start seeing beyond party lines. And when we have a platform, a blockchain ledger or even app that helps people to see which candidates, whether they're running as a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, Independent candidate, they'll be able to click on and volunteer for their campaign. They'll be able to click here to say, how do I run for office in my local level? Oh, is this how I get on the ballot? Let me learn from Richard Winger of Ballot Access News. Wow, what's alternative voting methods like ranked choice voting? Oh, let's go to Fair Vote or Center for Election Science to learn about approval voting, or Fair Vote for ranked choice voting, instant runoff voting. And voting machines. Do I support mail-in ballots? Do I support blockchain voting? Do I support the voting machines that are owned by Default and Dominion, and which is tied to the powers that be? Like, this is what's coming in the future. And when we give those candidates a truly free and equal platform of winning that's beyond money, beyond the Federal Reserve note, maybe alternative currencies will probably support these candidates like Bitcoin. And I agree with you, Lynn. A point that will stick with me from this conversation is that Ross really did help Bitcoin break through. I mean,
he's been called the second most important person in Bitcoin history after Satoshi Nakamoto. He proved that it could be, or Silk Road, proved it could be used as money, that it was viable, that it wasn't. It was his vision, that made it known. Before that, but before the whole Silk Road case, no one heard, hardly, except some obscure people had heard of Bitcoin. It put it on the map and showed its potential. So yeah. And for Ross, it's not about the money. It's not about, it's about the freedom of it. And he even wrote an essay, Bitcoin Equals Freedom, and goes into why and how important it is to remember that the benefit of these currencies is decentralization, equality around the world for people. There's a lot of unbanked people that use cryptocurrency in Venezuela, for example, who can't get a bank account. There's, all kinds of benefits that add up to freedom for people and giving them a chance. And that's what Ross cares about. That's what he was interested in. So, yeah.
Well, then we have about 10 more minutes, and I wanted you to let people know again what websites, how they can support Ross, and where they can go to sign the petition. I'd like to kind of wrap up and
Sure.
have the final words on that.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, like I say, our hub is freeross.org, and it's about the case. We have, it lays out very clearly the disparity of sentencing, the how unfair it was. It's and just to bring up, because it always comes up, and you haven't brought it up, but I want to say, Ross was smeared with allegations of murder for hire that have been debunked. He denied them. The government in New York never charged him with that at trial. And a jury never ruled on it. And in fact, this was brought to the Supreme Court because the judge referred to these allegations that were never charged and never ruled on by a jury in her sentencing. She justified her sentencing with something that was never proven in court. And this is a Sixth Amendment violation. Judges are not supposed to decide what's true. A jury is supposed to decide that. But that didn't fly with the Supreme Court this time. It's being apparently done all the time. But in any case, it was also an indictment in Maryland that was based on material submitted by corrupt agents who weren't known to be the jury. And that's been dismissed with prejudice. So just if your listeners are thinking, well, yeah, but what about this murder stuff? It's not anywhere in the legal system. Ross's record has nothing to do with it in an official way. It's just a media thing that the government feeds to them, and they do it apparently a lot, I've been told. So just put that at rest. But there's more information about it that's all footnoted on our website. There's very in-depth information. There's also a page, Meet Ross, that first of all, there's 100 letters from people who actually know Ross writing to the judge begging her to give him the minimum sentence, but instead she gave him the maximum possible within the system. So, and she said she was going to, so I guess she would have given him the death penalty if she could have. That's the kind of person she is. But in any case, there's 100 letters, and and also Ross has a Twitter account. He's not on internet, but he writes messages that are posted by a close person very close to the family. And so you can get a sense of who he is from that Twitter account. It's at Real Ross and then the letter U, Real Ross U, and his writings. Because once you really start to get a sense of who he is, and he's consistently who he is, and people, there's like I said, I think it was 130 fellow prisoners signed a letter. A guard, now that he's not working for the system, wrote a letter saying, no, this is a mistake. So if you go to freeross.org, there's all that information. There's a way to sign a petition. As I say, it's fast approaching 300,000 signers. If you know anyone politically connected, and not only at White House level, but of course White House level would be great, at any level, that can help us get the word out, to get support, to eventually put this before the president and have him understand that this is worthy of his commutation. That would be fantastic. And of course, donations. We have, I think it's 4 lawyers right now. We always can use help with donations. We've had a lot of donations from the cryptocurrency community because they feel like they owe him, that they're wealthy because of Ross's vision, and they have helped us, but we continue to need help. Lawyers are very expensive, and this whole thing's expensive. So there's ways you can help, and it's an interesting and very rich website. There's also, oh, by the way, just as an aside, there's a whole take action page. One person who decided to take action called me and said, I want to put a billboard about Ross up in Times Square. And that recently was put up in Times Square. There's a Free Ross billboard up in Times Square now. And it'll be there until the election. And hopefully eventually some people will be walking around, all the buses go through. But so different ways people have ideas about how they can help, or just you can always get in touch with me. There's a footer on every page of the website about how to get in touch with me. And just any really contacts would be extremely valuable for us, because our main goal is to get this before the president.
Well, thank you, Lyn, so much for your time today. And
Oh,
I
thank
hope,
you. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
well, I wouldn't be able to do this without the team. They've inspired
And they
me
great.
to
Yeah, very organized.
continue
Yeah.
this work. It's very few of us females in this political arena, founding
Yeah.
organizations I found out in the last decade or two, but uh,
Mhm.
that will matter less and less in the future. It's about what we stand for, and people will see, what's good and what isn't. I wanted to thank you so much for all that you do. I, again,
You
hope to
too.
see you in Las Vegas in July, maybe
Yeah,
out
I hope
there,
so too.
and at
Yeah.
Griffith, so on.
Yeah.
And I also invite you, we could talk about it later, but of course, I invite you to be on every stop of the United We Stand for. Get more details on our website. People are interested, freeandequal.org on events, and starts like September 18th, 5 weekends in a row across the
Okay.
United States. So it looks like
That'd be
it's just,
interesting.
yeah, we'll keep it small and live stream it if that's what, we need to do to make it happen. And yeah,
Mhm.
buses and RVs are, it's like more energy just every day. It's beautiful. It's like, but Lyn, it's knowing people like you are out there, and the Free and Equal team and everybody I've interviewed, and more to come. That's what keeps me going. I just think to myself, okay, we're going to need to unite our country, and wherever Free and Equal goes, I'm prepared. But I'm like, if something else is going to do it, that's fine with me. I'm cool. But my
Yeah, yeah.
conscience is like, oh my gosh, I know in my conscience and heart, I've got to keep doing it. So it's a calling, a
It's the
duty.
ideas, you've got
You
to, I think if you can communicate the ideas to people,
know?
and like you're saying, let's have it open. Why can't we all say our ideas and people can choose? Let's have some respect for the people who are listening to everyone. They don't have to be spoon fed. Put it out there and, at least present the ideas. It's all about the ideas. And that's what changes things. So, but
It
that's what
does.
you're doing. And you're doing great work. Really, kudos to you for what you're doing. It's great.
Well, just talking
Yeah.
to you today, it inspires me to push harder. And I know where full steam where I can go and where I'm at right now. It's just kind of like, but just re-engaging and connecting this way, and just connecting, at least virtually starting off, it helps to put more, um, I don't know, I want to say fuel, but I'll say free energy into my my being, but to continue to press forward. And it really only takes, I mean, I say usually often at least 3-4% of the population to back an idea.
Right.
That's going to happen because, I mean, there's so many more of us than there are of them. There are so many more peaceful people in the world that maybe they're not joining the protest now. But I think when it goes in a solution-based direction of Woodstock, love, music, but solution, get out there, get involved, vote, and so on, run for office. I think that's when the masses are going to really. This is meant to be what we're going through now, and I wish the most peace as possible from it. But this too shall pass, and I think a great, beautiful awakening it is coming. I feel like I know that, but it's coming. So, Lyn, thank you again.
Thank
Hugs,
you so much.
you.
Yeah, hug you. See you
What
soon,
what
hopefully.
a lucky Ross to have somebody so beautiful like you in his life, and I just, you're such an inspiration. So I don't
Oh,
usually
thanks.
cry, but it's happened on this show. So there you go. All right, you really
Thank you
speak to
so
my heart.
much.
All right, much love.
Bye.